The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. Hitler's Diaries is a 60-volume set of diaries, supposedly written by Adolf Hitler, is at the heart of one of modern history's greatest hoaxes. Hitler's Diaries, ostensibly covering the entire history of the Third Reich from 1933, when the National Socialist Party took power in Germany, to its humiliating end in 1945. Gerd Heidemann, a stern employee, had discovered them. According to The New Yorker, they included reflections on his bad breath and girlfriend Eva Braun's false pregnancy. They also revealed Hitler to be irritated by his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, and shockingly unaware of the fate of German Jewry. The diaries, which were supposed to cover Hitler's life from 1932, the year before his rise to power, to 1945, the year of his death, were actually produced between 1981 and 1983 by forger Konrad Kujau, who posed as a Stuttgart antiques dealer, Herr Fischer, and had previously forged and sold paintings purportedly by Hitler. Believing the diaries were genuine, rescued from a plane that crashed in East Germany at the end of the war, the West German magazine Stern paid $3.7 million for the volumes in 1983 and then sold serial rights to various news outlets, including Rupert Murdoch's London Sunday Times, for more than $1 million. Stern anticipated demand by printing an extra 2 million copies on April 25, 1983, with the cover screaming, "Hitler's Diaries Discovered." In London, the Sunday Times went to print at the same time. Both publications were adamant about making the most of their sensational investment. They should have been patient. Even as the diaries began to circulate, their veracity was being called into question by the very historians who had authenticated them. Hugh Trevor Roper, whose authorship of The Last Days of Hitler in 1947 had brought him fame, fortune, and immense academic prestige, suffered the most. Although he was initially skeptical of the diaries, his skepticism had melted after seeing the sheer volume of discovered material and accepting Stern's claims that the diary's papers had been chemically tested, which had not happened, and he declared his belief in the volume's authenticity. By April 25, however, Roper's skepticism had returned, especially after learning that Stern, despite its claims, did not know the identity of the East German source supplying the volumes. Reporters at the news conference announcing the discovery were skeptical as well. So, with suspicions growing in the possibility of being charged with illegally distributing Nazi propaganda, Stern submitted 3 of the volumes to federal West German agencies for examination, after which the diaries were definitively declared fake. The paper and the ink were post-war productions. The bindings had been artificially aged with tea. The entries were filled with Hitler's known stylistic cliches, and they referred to facts that the dictator simply did not have. The forger had even mistakenly affixed the initials FH on the diary covers instead of AH, having been confused by the elaborate Old English Gothic initials that he used. Reputations began to deteriorate rapidly. Heidemann was the first to suffer. He was discovered to be a researcher rather than a journalist. He was active in neo-Nazi circles, had an affair with Göring's daughter, hosted parties for prominent ex-Nazis, and amassed a collection of Nazi and other military memorabilia. So, in an attempt to save himself, Heidemann revealed where he had found his priceless material, and the extraordinary figure of Konrad Kujau entered the international media spotlight. Konrad Kujau was born in the Saxon town of Lobau, 40 miles from Dresden, in what became East Germany. He was a short, round-faced man with a drooping mustache. His father, a shoemaker, was a devout Nazi until his death in 1944. Konrad Kujau was raised in a series of orphanages before fleeing to the West in 1957 and falling into a life of casual labor and petty crime. Two previously hidden talents gradually emerged in his life. First and foremost, he could paint. Nothing he did was original and he lacked a distinct style, but he could almost perfectly imitate a painting. Second, he could spoof almost anything, especially other people's handwriting. In the mid-1970s, he had the brilliant idea of combining his two talents into a scam that could have kept him financially comfortable for the rest of his life if he hadn't become too greedy. Hitler was an ardent amateur painter, producing between 2 and 3,000 drawings, paintings, and sketches. So Konrad Kujau began creating paintings in Hitler's style, attaching to them a forged letter or certificate confirming their authenticity. In reality, the authentication notes were crude and the paper was modern, but it must be assumed that he had considered an important psychological factor, one that would resurface in the Hitler Diaries fraud: the power of secrecy. He was aware that his customers felt guilty about their purchases, that collections of Nazi memorabilia were kept secret, and that as a result, no one would take his forgeries to be checked by experts. According to Konrad Kujau, it wasn't until 1978 that he sat down and began writing a diary for the period in Hitler's handwriting, using an official Nazi party yearbook from 1935 as a source. What Konrad Kujau couldn't have known was that one day, after hearing about the diaries, a gullible fool like Heidemann would show up on his doorstep and offer him 2.5 million sterling of Stern's money for them. When this occurred, he of course did not reject the approach, and once the offer arrived, he worked long hours churning out diary after diary, with the understanding, of course, that Heidemann would never reveal his identity as the source. Heidemann would stop on an East German highway, toss money for the diaries into a passing car, receive the books through the open window of his Mercedes, and transport them west. By 1983, Stern was working on syndication deals for the diaries with Newsweek, Time, and two Rupert Murdoch properties, the Times of London and the Sunday Times. With the diary collection nearly complete, Heidemann promised even more from his source, including a Hitler opera and a third installment of Mein Kampf. Schmidt recalled pressing Heidemann on his source on April 22, 3 days before Stern revealed their payload. But Heidemann refused, claiming that lives hang in the balance, according to a translation in The New Yorker. While the German drama played out, the Sunday Times, which had paid a $200,000 fee for the rights to publish the diaries in the British Commonwealth, conducted its own independent examination of the documents' authenticity. The paper asked Trevor Roper, also known as Lord Dacre, to confirm them. After inspecting them in a Swiss vault, Trevor Roper, like the other historians, found them credible. On Saturday, April 23, a quote from him teasing the diaries appeared in the Times, the Sunday Times' sister paper. It was because of this corrosive secrecy that the Sunday Times was duped. Everyone involved in the paper's agreement with Stern to publish the diaries in English was required to sign confidentiality agreements. Lord Dacre of Glanton, formerly Professor Hugh Trevor Roper, the historian hired by the paper's new owner, Rupert Murdoch, to authenticate the diaries, claimed after the scandal broke that if he hadn't signed such an agreement before being allowed to inspect the diaries, the fraud would have been revealed. As it was, he initially stated that the diaries were an archive of greatest historical importance, then changed his mind after more thought. The scandal severely harmed Stern's credibility, and two of its top two editors were forced to resign. Murdoch's Times also had an editorial shakeup and demanded a refund from the German magazine. The scandal permanently tarnished Trevor Roper's reputation. Konrad Kujau, the forger, and Gerd Heidemann, the Stern reporter, who brokered the deal and stole money from Stern's payment that was due to the forger, were both arrested, found guilty of theft and fraud, and sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Kujau confessed to the hoax, even writing his confession in the style of Hitler's handwriting to prove his guilt. When Konrad Kujau reappeared 3 years later, he became a media celebrity, selling his life story and making appearances on television. In Stuttgart, he opened a gallery where he sold genuine forgeries of paintings by Hitler, Rembrandt, Dali, Monet, Van Gogh, and other masters. He signed the paintings in both his own and the original artists' names, and the works sold for tens of thousands of dollars. His reproductions were so popular that counterfeit Kujau's fakes quickly appeared on the market. But he couldn't stop himself from doing some forging on the side, and he was arrested for forging false driving licenses. When he fell ill, he opened another gallery in Majorca to fund his treatment. Germans on holiday would seek him out and persuade him to demonstrate his skills. He was busy forging away for demonstrations purposes only, almost up until his death.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to say that I am incredibly grateful that you took time out of your schedule to listen to my narration. This is Nikki of Twisted Mind, wishing you a great rest of your day. Salamat.